May 28th, 1927, 2:47 a.m. Giuseppe Joe Aiello's hand was shaking as he held the small glass vial up to the dim kitchen light. Inside, clear as water, deadly as a bullet, prussic acid, $35,000. That was the stack of cash sitting on the stainless steel counter of Bella Napoli Cafe, 800 South Halsted Street. And Marco Roselli, the chef who'd been cooking Capone's favorite linguine for 3 years, was staring at both. The poison, the money, his mother's future. One drop in Al Capone's soup, and Marco would be rich. One drop, and the most powerful gangster in Chicago would be dead in 90 seconds. Aiello leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. One drop, just one. Thursday night when he orders the linguine. You stir it in, you walk away, you disappear. Tomorrow morning, you're on a train to Sicily. Rich man, free man. Marco's eyes moved from the vial to the cash. $35,000. More money than he'd see in 10 lifetimes. Enough to save his mother dying in Naples. Enough to start over. His hand reached out. But what Joe Aiello didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that 3 weeks earlier, Marco Roselli had already told Al Capone everything. To understand how one drop of poison started a war that would end with 200 bullets and 59 more, you need to understand who these men were in the spring of 1927. Spring 1927. Chicago was drowning in blood and beer. The city had been carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey, every gang boss claiming his slice, every street corner worth dying for. The beer wars, they called it. But it wasn't about beer. It was about power, money, territory. And the man who had more of all three than anyone else was 28-year-old Al Capone. Capone controlled the South Side like a king controlled a kingdom. Bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, labor unions. His empire pulled in $100 million a year. Every speakeasy from Cicero to the Loop paid tribute. Every politician from alderman to mayor took his money. Every cop on every corner looked the other way. Al Capone didn't just run Chicago. He owned it. But 5 miles north, in the Italian neighborhood they called Little Sicily, Giuseppe Joe Aiello had other ideas. Aiello controlled the bootlegging operations in his territory, made good money selling sugar to home brewers, ran a successful bakery on West Division Street. But money wasn't enough. Joe Aiello wanted recognition. He wanted respect. He wanted what Capone had. And there was one thing that burned in Aiello's gut like acid. The Unione Siciliana. It was supposed to be a benevolent society, helping Sicilian immigrants settle in America. But like everything in Chicago, the mob had corrupted it. Control of the Unione meant control of votes, of money, of influence. Joe Aiello believed that position should be his. He was Sicilian. He was powerful. He deserved it. Instead, in November 1925, Al Capone handed the presidency to Antonio Lombardo, Capone's man, Capone's puppet, and Joe Aiello. He got nothing, not even a conversation, just a message delivered through intermediaries. The position's filled. Stay in your lane. That humiliation festered. Aiello tried everything to get rid of Capone. A machine gun ambush outside the Hawthorne Hotel, a car bomb that never detonated, hitmen from Milwaukee, from Detroit, from New York. All of them ended up dead. Capone seemed untouchable, protected by luck, by informants, by some dark magic that kept bullets from finding their target. By spring 1927, Aiello was desperate, and desperate men make creative choices. If bullets wouldn't work, maybe chemistry would. For 3 months, Aiello had been watching, studying, learning Capone's habits, and he'd noticed something. Every Thursday night, 8 o'clock, like clockwork, Al Capone walked into Bella Napoli Cafe at 800 South Halsted Street and ordered the same meal, linguine with clam sauce. The restaurant belonged to Joseph Diamond Joe Esposito, one of the old guard Italian bosses. Esposito had taken a young Al Capone under his wing years before Johnny Torrio ever did. Taught him about the neighborhood, about respect, about how to move through the world. Bella Napoli wasn't just Capone's favorite restaurant. It was sacred ground, a piece of his history, which made it the perfect place for an assassination. And Marco Roselli, the 34-year-old chef from Naples who'd been cooking Capone's linguine for 3 years, was the perfect weapon. Late April 1927. Aiello cornered Marco in an alley behind the restaurant. The conversation was brief. Marco's mother was dying of tuberculosis in Naples. Treatment cost $5,000. Money Marco didn't have. Aiello started his offer at $10,000. By the end of the conversation, it was $35,000. Enough to save Marco's mother. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over. The weapon would be prussic acid. Colorless. Tasteless. Kills in 90 seconds. 1 drop in the soup. Stir twice. Walk away. But Joe Aiello made one fatal mistake. He assumed fear was the same as loyalty. Al Capone in 1927 wasn't just another gangster. He was 28 years old and running the most profitable criminal enterprise in American history. He wasn't some street thug with a gun. He was a businessman with political connections that reached into City Hall, into the police department, into the governor's mansion. Bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, labor unions, every racket that made money. Capone had a piece of it. His weekly income was $2 million. That's roughly $35 million in today's money. Every week. But after the North Side gang tried to kill him in September 1926, machine gunning his headquarters at the Hawthorne Hotel with over 1,000 rounds, Capone became obsessed with security. He rode in a bulletproof Cadillac equipped with a police siren. He tasted every meal before eating it. He never slept in the same place twice. And most importantly, he had informants everywhere. Every kitchen, every hotel, every speakeasy, waiters, dishwashers, doormen, shoeshine boys, the people nobody paid attention to, the invisible workers. Johnny Torrio, Capone's mentor, had taught him that lesson years before. I don't trust nobody, but I pay attention to everybody. Information was more valuable than bullets. Knowing what your enemies were planning before they made their move. That was real power. And Capone's network of eyes and ears was legendary. Nothing happened in Chicago without Capone hearing about it. Usually within hours. Which brings us to Bella Napoli. Diamond Joe Esposito had been Capone's first real mentor, even before Torrio, in the early 1920s, when Capone was still learning the ropes. Esposito taught him about respect versus fear, about moving through the Italian neighborhoods, about building loyalty instead of demanding it. Bella Napoli wasn't just Capone's favorite restaurant. It was where he'd learned to be more than muscle. Attacking it meant attacking Capone's history. And Capone had a rule. Anyone who tried to kill him once got a warning. Anyone who tried twice got buried. Joe Aiello was on attempt number 6. So when Joe Aiello walked into that cafe kitchen with his vial of poison and his stacks of cash, he thought he was being smart. He thought he was finally ahead of Capone. He was wrong. Marco Roselli was 34 years old. He'd been in Chicago for 8 years, working his way up from washing dishes to running the kitchen at Bella Napoli. He was from Naples, not Sicily. Important distinction in that world. He had no mob connections, no criminal past. He just wanted to cook, make honest money, send some home to his mother. But his mother, Maria, was 62 and dying of tuberculosis in Naples. The treatment cost $5,000. Money Marco didn't have. Money he'd never have. Not on a chef's salary. When Aiello cornered him in that alley in late April, the offer was simple. $35,000. More than Marco would make in 5 years. Enough to save his mother. Enough for a new identity. A ticket to Sicily. A fresh start. All for 1 drop of poison in Al Capone's linguine. Aiello had been persuasive. Capone doesn't even know your name. Why die for him for 3 weeks? Marco couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The vial of prussic acid sat hidden in his apartment, and every night he practiced the motion. 1 drop in the soup, stir twice, walk away. He imagined his mother's face, her labored breathing, the way she smiled through the pain. Then he imagined Capone's dead eyes staring at nothing. May 16th, 1927. Marco's breaking point. He called Aiello. Thursday night, May 28th. Capone always comes Thursdays. But what Marco didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the dishwasher at Bella Napoli, a kid named Frankie Ears Nitti, no relation to Frank Nitti, had heard that alley conversation back in April. Frankie reported to his cousin, who reported to Jack Machine Gun McGurn, who reported directly to Capone. Al Capone had known about the poison plot since April 27th, the day after Aiello made his offer. Capone could have killed Marco immediately, could have killed Aiello. Instead, he told McGurn something that would become part of Chicago legend. Let him make the poison. Let him bring the money. Then we teach both of them a lesson nobody forgets. On May 28th, 1927, at 2:47 a.m., Joe Aiello walked into that kitchen thinking he was about to become the man who killed Al Capone. He had no idea he was walking into a trap 3 weeks in the making. May 17th, 1927, 9:30 p.m. Capone's office above the Four Deuces on South Wabash. Present were the men Capone trusted most. Jack Machine Gun McGurn, enforcer and strategist. Frank Nitti, head of intelligence operations. Tony Joe Batter Zaccardo, rising star in the organization. And Capone himself, sitting behind his desk with a Cuban cigar, asking one simple question. How do we make Joe Aiello scared of his own shadow? The plan that emerged was elegant in its cruelty. Let Aiello deliver the poison and the money. Let Marco accept the deal. Let Aiello think he'd won. Then, the night before the scheduled assassination, Capone would visit Marco personally, not to threaten, to offer an alternative. May 27th, 1927, 11:30 p.m. Marco Roselli nearly had a heart attack when Al Capone walked into his apartment, alone, unarmed, just Capone in a perfectly tailored suit, carrying nothing but a smile. He sat down at Marco's kitchen table like they were old friends, lit a cigar. You got a sick mother, I hear. In Naples. Marco couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Capone pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, $10,000 in cash, counted and stacked. The Western Union office opens at 8 a.m. Wire this to Naples. She'll have surgery by Monday. That's when Marco broke, tears streaming down his face. He told Capone everything, showed him the vial of prussic acid, admitted the plan. I couldn't do it. Mr. Capone, I swear to God, I was going to tell you tomorrow. I couldn't go through with it. Capone picked up the vial, held it up to the light. You know what this stuff does. He'd collapse within seconds. No warning, no chance. He looked at Marco. I know. That's why I'm here tonight. Then Capone laid out the real plan. Tomorrow night, when Aiello comes with the rest of his money, you take it. You act nervous, conflicted, exactly like he expects. Then Thursday, when I come for dinner, you pretend to put poison in my linguine. But it won't be poison. It'll be water. I eat the whole plate. I walk out fine. And Joe Aiello spends the rest of his life wondering if he's losing his mind. May 28th, 1927, 2:47 a.m. Joe Aiello entered the kitchen of Bella Napoli Cafe carrying $35,000 and enough prussic acid to kill 20 men. Marco played his part perfectly, nervous, conflicted, hands shaking as he counted the cash. Aiello leaned close, describing exactly how the poison would work. He'll feel dizzy first. Then he can't breathe. Then seizures. 90 seconds. He's dead. Aiello handed over the vial. 1 drop. Just 1. In his linguine. When he's halfway through, I got a car waiting on Taylor Street. Soon as you see him collapse, You walk out the back. We're gone. By morning, you're on a train. I've tried bullets, bombs, ambushes, Aiello said, his voice full of confidence. Food is what finally works. Capone's getting comfortable. That's when men die. Aiello left at 3:15 a.m. The moment the door closed, Marco hid the real poison and replaced it with tap water. Thursday night, May 28th, 8:17 p.m. Al Capone walked into Bella Napoli Cafe with 2 bodyguards, ordered his usual, linguine with clam sauce. Marco served it personally, hands visibly shaking. When Capone turned to talk to his men, Marco made a show of adding a single drop from the vial, stirred twice, walked away. Capone took the first bite, closed his eyes. Marco, this is perfection. Across the street, sitting in a dark blue Packard. Joe Aiello watched through the restaurant window, watched Capone take another bite, and another. Aiello checked his watch. 90 seconds. Capone should be feeling dizzy, should be struggling to breathe. Capone finished the entire plate, ordered espresso, lit a cigar, talked and laughed with his bodyguards for 45 minutes, then stood up, put on his fedora, and walked out of the restaurant. Perfectly fine. Got into his bulletproof Cadillac and drove away. In the Packard, Joe Aiello's hands were shaking. It should have worked. It should have worked. Did Marco betray him? Was the poison bad? Or was Al Capone somehow immortal? Joe Aiello spent that night replaying every second in his mind. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Called Marco's apartment the next morning. No answer. Drove by Bella Napoli. Marco wasn't there. The fear started to set in. Did Marco talk, is Capone coming? May 29th, 1927, 10 a.m. Hawthorne Inn. Cicero. Capone sat with McGurn, discussing the response. We hit the bakery tomorrow morning, McGurn asked. Capone shook his head. No, we hit it tomorrow afternoon. 2:00 p.m. When it's full of customers. When Joe's brothers are there. When everyone can see. This wasn't just revenge. It was a demonstration. Joe Aiello tried to poison me in my favorite restaurant, so I'm going to poison his business with bullets. The orders were specific. Every window, every wall. Don't shoot to kill. Shoot to terrify. May 29th, 1927, 1:47 p.m. Joe Aiello's brother Antonio was behind the counter of Aiello Brothers Bakery on West Division Street, selling bread to neighborhood families. In 13 minutes, the bread would be the least of his problems. 473 West Division Street, Aiello Brothers Bakery, Saturday afternoon, May 29th, 1927, the busiest time of the week. 47 customers inside buying bread, cannoli, sfogliatelle, the smell of fresh-baked dough filling the neighborhood. Joe Aiello wasn't there. He was hiding at his mansion in Rogers Park, 5 miles north, wondering why Al Capone was still alive. His brothers Antonio, Dominic, and Andrew were working the counter, serving customers who had no idea what was about to happen. 2:00 p.m., 4 black Cadillacs pulled up outside. Engines kept running. No one got out at first. Customers inside didn't notice. They were too busy picking out their bread, talking about the weather, complaining about prohibition. 2:02 p.m., the front window exploded. Tommy gunfire erupted from all 4 Cadillacs simultaneously. Customers hit the floor. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Antonio Aiello dove behind the counter, pulling his brothers down with him. The mathematics of terror. 4 Thompson submachine guns, 50-round drum magazines each, 200 bullets fired in less than 90 seconds. Every window shattered. Walls turned to Swiss cheese. Display cases exploded, sending bread and pastries flying. Ceiling tiles fell. Plaster dust filled the air. And the gunmen weren't aiming at people. They were aiming at everything. The building itself. The business. The Aiello name. Antonio Aiello was hit twice and went down. He'd survive. 3 customers were wounded by flying glass and shrapnel, but the building $15,000 in damage. That's roughly $260,000 in today's money. The entire structure compromised, and 0 fatalities. Intentionally. 2:03 p.m. The guns stopped. The Cadillacs drove away, slow and casual, like they'd just finished a Sunday drive. No police in sight. They'd been paid off. The entire attack lasted 3 minutes from arrival to departure. 3 minutes to destroy everything the Aiello brothers had built. The aftermath was chaos. Customers screaming, calling for help. Antonio collapsed behind the counter, wounded, his brothers pressing towels to his wounds, bread loaves destroyed, dough covered in plaster and broken glass. And the smell, gunpowder mixing with baking bread, a scent that would haunt that block for years. By 2:15 p.m., Joe Aiello had heard what happened. By 2:30 p.m., he was on the phone trying to reach his brothers. By 3 o'clock p.m., he understood the message. Al Capone didn't kill Antonio. He didn't have to. He'd proven something more important. You can't hide. Your family can't hide. And poison isn't honorable. But 200 bullets. That's a statement. May 30th, 1927. 7:35 p.m. Columbus Hospital. Antonio Aiello lay in bed recovering from surgery. Police guards stationed outside his door for show. Then Al Capone walked in carrying flowers and a fruit basket. The guards didn't stop him. They'd been paid. Antonio's eyes went wide with fear. Capone sat down beside the bed, calm as Sunday morning. How you feeling? Antonio. Your brother tried to poison me. You know that Antonio shook his head. I didn't know nothing about it. Capone nodded. I believe you. That's why you're alive. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. $5,000 in cash. For your hospital bills. For the bakery repairs. For your trouble. Then came the real message. Your brother Joe. He don't understand respect. He understands fear. So I gave him fear. 200 bullets. Could have been 200 bodies. But I ain't a monster. I'm a businessman. Capone stood up to leave, but paused at the door. Tell Joe this. Next time he tries to kill me, I won't miss his brothers. I won't miss his wife. I won't miss his 4 kids. He smiled. Oh, and Antonio. The linguine at Bella Napoli. Still the best in Chicago. I had it again last night. Not a drop of poison in it. Antonio understood everything in that moment. Capone had known about the poison from the beginning. The bakery attack was calculated restraint, a warning. Next time would be different. Message received. That hospital visit did something bullets couldn't. It broke Joe Aiello's confidence. It made him realize he wasn't fighting a gangster. He was fighting a chess master who was always 10 moves ahead. June 3rd, 1927. A package arrived at Joe Aiello's mansion. No return address. Inside was the vial of prussic acid, the real one Marco had saved. A note in Capone's handwriting. Joe, you wanted to poison me drop by drop. I fed you bullets spray by spray. Keep this poison. Try it on yourself. It'll work better. A C and a photograph. Al Capone eating linguine at Bella Napoli, smiling at the camera. Joe Aiello knew it was over. He couldn't go after Capone anymore. He fled to New Jersey with his family, stayed in hiding for months, but the poison vial sat on his desk, a constant reminder of his failure. Capone didn't just defeat him, he humiliated him, made him a laughingstock in the Chicago underworld. The man who tried to poison Capone with drops got repaid with 200 bullets. But Joe Aiello wasn't done. He was too proud, too ambitious, too stupid to stay away. And that decision would cost him everything.